Welcome to Sterling Visionary Voices, the podcast dedicated to bringing you diverse, innovative leadership insights and actionable strategies for success. Join hosts Laura McNeil and Bob Madeiros as they explore the art and science of role model leadership through thought-provoking conversations with real professionals. Whether you're a seasoned leader or aspiring to excellence, Sterling Visionary Voices is your guide to navigating the complexities of your leadership journey.
Hi, and welcome to Visionary Voices. I'm Bob Madeiros, your host for today's episode, where we'll be revisiting the Sterling Leadership Fellows Program. Now, back in April of last year, we talked to Phil Centonze about the then new program. Now, the inaugural cohort is well underway, so I thought it'd be nice to touch base with Phil and some of the fellows involved in the program and see how it's coming. But first, let me introduce Phil Centonze, managing partner at Paz Impact LLC. Phil brings over 25 years of experience in guiding and advising senior leaders across various sectors to enhance leadership capability and strategically improve business performance. Now, Phil is also the director of the Sterling Leadership Fellows Development Program. Welcome, Phil. So good to talk with you today.
Well, thank you, Bob. Likewise. We're happy to be here.
Okay. So, Phil, to start us off, why don't you just give our audience a quick refresher on the Sterling Leadership Fellows Program?
Okay, Bob, I'll do that. So we're 9 months into the inaugural year of the Sterling Leadership Fellows Development Program, which runs from conference to conference. You may remember our mission of this program is to develop aspiring leaders by stimulating transformation from a management to a leadership perspective and behavior to elevate professional, personal, and organizational performance excellence. A typical Sterling Leadership Fellow candidate is a mid or higher level leader showing interest in developing self, seeking new knowledge, influencing others, and being an energetic, flexible, and resilient leader. We meet monthly, sometimes virtually, sometimes in person, to learn from and interact with experts and leaders from role model organizations to talk about the practical aspects and that practical application of the Sterling framework for performance excellence. Each of our meetings is themed to one of the 11 Sterling core values, which is very important to the entire model. The Fellows Program is integrated with the Sterling South Florida Summit and both annual Sterling conferences, which bookend the one-year program. One of the most valuable aspects, I believe, of the Fellows Program is the accomplishment of 2 team-based projects as learning experiences, but also which benefit the candidate's home organization. The candidates are first tasked with creating or updating the current organizational profile for their home organization. Then they lead and complete a capstone project intended to address a strategically oriented topic of importance, usually drawn from the profile, but whatever is again strategically important for the company, for the organization is what's most important. The project charter is then developed in consensus with the candidate's supervisor and sponsor. The fellows candidates are expected to develop a storyboard with project results, again intended to benefit the sponsoring organization. The capstone project and results presented at the final meeting we have in April before graduation week, which comes in the following Sterling conference in May. We require these projects engage the home coworkers as teammates as well into the project for knowledge sharing purposes. That basically is an overall summary of the Fellows Development Program. Anything else I can give you?
Well, yes, that's pretty interesting. So like you said, we're 9 months into this one-year program. What would you say would be some of the highlights that you've experienced, Phil, so far?
Well, that's pretty easy to talk about. It's been a very exciting program overall, and includes, besides all the virtual meetings that we've been involved with, 3 exciting in-person meetings, with role model leaders and those role model organizations that they're from. We visited the Wellstar Health System up in Georgia, in Marietta, and a couple of the facilities in that region. We visited the USF Federal Credit Union in Tampa, and visited some of their units within the credit union. And most recently, we were at Miami-Dade Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces Department in South Florida. That was in conjunction with a Sterling board meeting, actually, and also with the South Florida Summit that was held this year. The Safari to Success, I think, was the brand name for that. All Sterling or Oglethorpe, all of those organizations were Sterling or Oglethorpe role model organizations. And at each of them, the fellows candidates really, they networked with the leaders, hearing their perspectives, hearing their ideas about how they address their leadership roles. The icing on the cake at all of those in-person meetings, actually, is the behind-the-scenes tours, not only of the facility, to actually see the facility and what the physical facility looked like, but also a tour of the processes and systems behind host operations. And on top of that, conversations with employees, the working level employees at all levels, actually, throughout those, whenever we attended a tour at the organization. There were others also that were engaged by the fellows candidates, outside of those role model organizations, but other role model leaders. For instance, the senior leader team at Lee Health, a recent Sterling Award recipient. The Hillsborough County tax collector came in person and visited with us, with the cohort, and talked about ethical leadership. And Sterling International, also Ala El-Awage, was a speaker and presenter to the group, about systems perspective, one of the core values this year. And there were other resources as well, like the Sterling Master Examiners. There were multiple examiners who have provided presentations and talked with, met with, and interacted with the fellows cohort.
Okay. Well, I'm listening to you talk, and you mentioned the capstone project earlier. And I think, that's really, almost the definition of applied learning. It's like going through this and actually applying it in something that's really beneficial to the organization. So I think that's excellent. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Now that we've had a chance to hear Phil's perspective, let's hear a little bit from the folks who are actually going through the process. We're joined today by two participants in this inaugural Fellows cohort. Today we have Latricia McKinner, Manager, Accreditation and Licensure, Wellstar Paulding Medical Center. And we also have Christopher McKenzie, System Safety and Quality Coordinator, Wellstar Health Systems. Folks, welcome to Sterling Visionary Voices.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, it's really nice to have you guys here, and I think it's really going to be important to get your perspective as you're going through this. So let me ask this first question. Let's start with, as part of this inaugural cohort, what has impressed you the most about this program? Latricia, you want to?
What's impressed me the most, I would say, what I've learned and experienced through these months in the program. We've had amazing leaders that have come to give insightful presentations during our virtual, as well as our in-person meetings, where we were challenged, I guess, to have those personal interactions and build those relationships with those leaders and those team members. Because as Phil said, it was not just their senior executive team, but also from frontline all the way up, to your executive team. So from that, I also was impressed by the vulnerability of some of those leaders, because they talked about not just what made it or made them successful, but they were really open and honest about those challenges that they had. And some of those challenges were things that, for myself, I think that once you're at that level, you may not have those challenges, but I realized they still have some of the same challenges that I do here as a manager. So that was very eye-opening. I also just like to see the actual framework in action and to see that it
Mhm.
truly worked across all industries. I'm in healthcare, so my focus a lot is in healthcare. So to see the credit union and at the zoo, how truly across the board that framework is successful and it works if you use it, and that we're more like with the fundamental core values more than we think we are. So it's been a great ride.
Excellent. Well, very good. Christopher, do you have anything to add from your perspective?
Absolutely. So for me, I would say the thing that really impressed me was being able to go to model organizations and seeing the vulnerability that was displayed at each organization. They would let you know, just from a historical perspective, how they addressed the challenges that they had and how they took the Sterling framework and applied it from their governance level all the way down to the frontline staff. And they talk about like the wins and the challenges in each of those stages. And so that was very, very impressionable for me.
Mm.
But being able to have a cohort that you can really speak to as it pertains to some of the challenges that you may be facing in your own work area. And they challenge you to think strategically. They challenge you to think based upon the framework. And you're like, oh yeah, thank you for that gentle reminder. So it's a really great way to have collaboration and firsthand experience and eyewitness of how you can see organizations and how they have overcome those challenges.
Okay. Well, Christopher, while I've got you, how do you feel this overall experience has impacted your leadership style?
Oh, that's a great question. So my background has been in safety and quality, and I am a coordinator. This particular fellows program is giving me the experience, like a leadership training program. And so the experience that I'm getting is priceless. Reason being is that I'm being challenged to do a capstone project, and it is really stretching me because I'm getting a chance to work with all levels of the organization and making sure that we're applying the framework, but also coaching to the success that the framework has to offer. And those are some of the areas that I would say that's been most impactful in helping me with developing as a leader.
Very good. Latricia, what would you say? How has this whole experience impacted you and your particular leadership style?
Yes. So I guess I kind of came into it with like the basic of like, hey, what's your leadership style? And you're like, hey, this is, I did my research and this is my leadership style, and it is what it is. But being in this experience and having this, going through the process, I realized that it's bigger than that. That was more of a micro look at it, but this gives you that global look of it's not just about you and your particular space. You should be looking at it from, a facility, and from like we'll start our facility and then to also to like the system level and how that impacts and what your piece plays into the bigger strategic plan of the organization. So um, as I started to think about it, I was like, okay, it's a little bit bigger than that. I mean, you hear that all the time, and it's like, think a little bit deeper than that. And so, again, as Chris said, it did challenge me on that. And also, just with the project, running into some challenges and talking to my cohort and Phil and other master leaders, just examiners, as far as how to address those things. Because some things come up that if we weren't a part or I wasn't a part of this capstone and helping to lead this project that I might not have experienced before. So challenges with people that is not necessarily because you're not the boss of a lot of these people. And so having to influence them to do what you need them to do um, is a big thing that I think sometimes people miss. And even for us, my background is nursing. And so when it comes to providers, there's certain things that, it's just an unsaid rule that you don't do. So, how do we get providers to do things that we need them to do when sometimes they don't see us as a colleague? And that's nothing to say anything wrong with providers or nurses or that relationship. But sometimes as the provider, they're like, I went to school, I know what I'm doing. This is it. I'm the, this is the plan and that's what we're going with. But to really kind of help them sometimes see that there may be a gap and how to do that sometimes can be challenging. And so this has truly helped me to stretch myself in how do we do that and how do we get around to it, meet the goal and to continue to move towards the goal.
Wow. Now, well, thank you, Latricia. Both of you have talked about the capstone project. And I realize it's still early in the whole process, but so far, how has your capstone project impacted your organization, or is it too early to ask that question?
So one, it had to be a strategic objective. So I'll say here at Paulding, we have a lot of I'll say leaders that are just strong leaders. And so by the time we kind of got into it, a lot of stuff we had kind of started already and identified those things because we do strategic meetings earlier in the year. So it was one of those that I had to look and see what we currently were working on because although our fiscal year starts July 1st, we kind of had a head start of like looking at that and working out the plan so that July 1st it was hit the ground running. So yeah, so like I said, it's the strategic objectives, and then it was helpful getting feedback from the peers of the organizations that we were at. So again, thinking that like healthcare, some of the organizations were not healthcare. So getting that different perspective from them as far as like looking at something or, because you think everyone knows the healthcare lingo because every day I speak it, but talking to others where they're like, well, what is hypoglycemia? They may know it as blood sugar, things like that. So really being aware of that and then getting that, I guess for us, sometimes it was out of the box feedback that was just things that you don't think about in your normal day because it's just not something that you do. But being that you're in different and going to different industries, they may see it a totally different way that truly helps you get to the best way to address that. So that was very helpful.
All right. Christopher, how about your capstone project?
The capstone project is really, as I was stating before, where I'm using the Sterling framework to apply in the actual capstone. And as I'm applying the framework, we are uncovering some organizational blind spots. And it is taking some turns and some pivots and restructuring. And but it's a great challenge because it's helping us to refocus on why we come to work. It's because we are here to promote safety and quality for our patients. And so having those safety and quality checks as we are incorporating the Sterling framework is what's most important. So from a strategic objective and a strategic challenge, that is some of the contributions that this project is making to the organization.
Okay, very good. Well, let me ask you two, what would you tell aspiring leaders out there why they should get involved in this program?
Well, I would definitely say the program has a lot of great service offerings that anyone could benefit from. I think that the unique service offering that it has is that it allows you to touch on different organizations. You get a chance to have a first eye view of the organizational capacity. And it challenges you to think holistically and not just through tunnel vision. And one of the things that I teach with at Wellstar, we use what's called the A3 document. And when I used to coach to the A3 document, I would have one person stand on one side of the podium and the other person stand on the other side of the podium. And I would pretend like I was the manager and I would say, hey, I need you to clean up this keypad. I want you to clean up the shelves. And they're seeing the other side of the podium where they just see this flat surface that says Wellstar on it. And I'm like, well, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to write you up for insubordination. And they're like, but all I see is the Wellstar sign. What keypad? What shelf? And so I was like, okay, now let's switch places. And they're like, okay, now I see the shelf. Now I see the keypad. And so this type of fellows program really helps you to look through the lens of different sections of the organization.
Very good.
And that's why it's impactful.
Okay.
That was good, Chris. Very good. Um, so I'll say for myself, being a leader already, it was kind of like sometimes you may think you know everything or that you have access and tools and resources to it. But what this has truly shown is that there's still a lot of things to learn. Like I said, this framework coming in truly blew my mind coming in as an examiner and just seeing how it works, and how truly if you put it to work and you work the plan, um, that across the board, everyone's successful with it. And so it's truly a good framework. And just also going to the different role model organizations and getting those nuggets. There were things that from the credit union, talking to the CFO and the VP of, community, that they were saying that it was just kind of mind blowing as far as like the one as far as like the leadership style. He was just like, I've changed my leadership style many times. He was like, it just keeps changing. And for me, that was like, what? What do you mean? Because sometimes in working with the regulatory, it's black or white for us. And so gray is not really a place that we live because that's what they said. That's what they want. They come and survey to that. So sometimes when you getting to see that gray area, sometimes in that, you still can be successful there. And it doesn't not necessarily have to always be a black and white situation was very eye opening for myself and just seeing it from the different perspectives and my team and my cohort. Um, Again, we have from different areas listening to them and their perspective and their projects actually and the way that they you know attack it or the different things that they do to keep moving towards getting the goal that they had at the beginning. And last but not least, Phil, he's
Yeah.
just been amazing. I always have to add him in because I appreciate it, and you can see the different places that we went, that he really was intentional and wanted to truly make sure that everything that it says in the paperwork when you're reading what this program does, making sure that all of those things were touched, and making sure that the right people came to talk to us. And I walked away from every single month um, something new. And so, I mean, that just truly speaks to Phil and the team that worked to really, get this program together. I would just say you can never stop learning. And I'm a person who continues to love, I love to learn. And so this has just truly been a great experience that I would think anyone should take if they could truly, their organization will allow it.
Very good.
And Bob, I
Yes,
would
sir.
like to add, Latricia brings up a good point. I told Phil when we were in Miami that he needs to extend this program to 2 years
He did.
because we're having such a great time with each
Okay.
other as a cohort,
Right.
but also just on the excursions that we go to the different organizations. So kudos to Phil and Dion
Yes.
for the impact that you all are making.
Well, very good.
Well, thank you, Latricia. Thank you, Christopher.
All right. Well, let me while we're talking about Phil, um, let's give the mic back to Phil and ask. So, what are the plans for 2025 with this program?
Well, we've no matter what you do, you're going to learn from what you do, and so there are a few points, a few minor tweaks that we will be making into the program, but essentially, it will go forward as I've described it before. With the same major elements. We're now recruiting for the 2025-2026 cohort of fellows candidates. Um, there's a comprehensive information brochure, which it's available and can be downloaded from our website, which is sterlingfellows.org. No spaces, very simple. sterlingfellows.org. You can download the brochure at that location, and the applications, which are also can be found at that same website, are due by April 18th of 2025. Obviously, the There will be a virtual orientation kickoff meeting scheduled for, or there is one scheduled for May 5th, where we'll get everybody together and kick off the program, help them understand the schedule and so on. So after that orientation, there are 13 follow-on monthly sessions, all themed to a Sterling core value, as I mentioned earlier. And those include, there will be 7 virtual sessions, which are about 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours. And there will be 6 in-person 2-day meetings, as we have had so far planned for this year. Fellows will graduate at the recognition ceremony in the 2026 annual conference, of course, which will be in Orlando. There is an investment, for this program, and we call it investment because that's exactly what we think it is. There's return that comes back on that, and the investment is $12,000 for the 1-year program, 1 year plus. Actually, it's 13 months, and the investment is returned in the form of development and performance of aspiring leaders. The fellow candidates build their leadership skills, which help bolster the home organization's leadership system, bringing higher performance not only on an individual level, but also in an organizational way, with positive impacts on their operations and on the workforce. That's the real intent. That's the value of the program. A key value of all that, of course, as I mentioned before, is the completion of 2 team-based projects. And those are learning experiences, but also intended to benefit the home organization with direct improvement results. Coworkers also benefit with knowledge sharing. As I mentioned, these are team-based projects, and as our fellows candidates take knowledge back to their home organization and work on the project, they're sharing that information, that knowledge, the tools, for process improvement as well with their coworkers, and that hopefully is considered additional value by the organization. So the 2 projects, as I mentioned, the organizational profile and the capstone project, which addresses the strategically important issue of the home organization, again, for real results and real impact. The program includes full registrations to the 25 and the 26 annual Sterling conferences, both in Orlando, as well as the pre-conference workshop for Criteria 101 in the first conference. And this year it'd be the 25 conference. And it also includes the full registration to the South Florida Summit in Miami, planned now for January of 2026. And again, just as this year, the 2025-2026 cohort, will hear from the role model leaders about their perspectives, about their best practice approaches, through facility tours and presentations, and there will be interaction between the candidates and the leaders, in helping gain insight to high-performing leadership behaviors while cultivating a network which can be relied on, going into the future. Throughout the program, the candidates have access to expert resources of the Sterling staff and the Sterling Master Examiners. And I want to thank, Latricia and Christopher, 2 present, and your colleagues in the rest of the cohort, for being part of this process of this development program this year. And honestly, I'm a bit depressed that the current cohort will be leaving us soon. We've only got a few months left. However, I know that we and they have really begun to build that relationship, in a network for sharing leadership ideas, leadership issues, leadership leadership knowledge, and successes. And I look forward to welcoming the next cohort of fellows candidates to the development activity and to add them to our network as well. I'm happy to answer any questions from anyone anytime. I can be reached at my mobile number, 954-684-2642, or email, which is leadership@sterlingfellows.org. Leadership@sterlingfellows.org. Thanks, Bob.
All right. Well, it's so nice hearing how engaged and excited the participants are in this program, and I think it's such a powerful tool, and there's so much return on, like you said, that investment. I think I'm looking forward to seeing the second cohort or whatever. Well, everyone, I really appreciate all that you've shared today on the Sterling Leadership Fellows program and how it's helping you to accelerate your own personal leadership. So thank you very much for participating. Phil, as you said, folks can go to sterlingfellows.org for more information on the program. That's pretty well all the time we have for today. I want to thank everyone who participated. It's really been my pleasure talking with all of you. And I'm also really looking forward to seeing you all at the Sterling Leadership Conference in May, where you'll be graduating from the program. I'm wondering if Phil's going to be giving you, yearbooks so that you can sign each other's yearbooks. I don't know. We'll see what great things.
That's not a bad idea.
What great things he has planned. The best thing is you've established those relationships, and so you've got those other folks who are participating, those other folks that you've met during the course of this, that are folks you can rely on to work with. Well, in closing, I just want to remind everyone out there that if you want to hear this and other episodes of Sterling Visionary Voices, go to sterlingvisionaryvoices.com. Well, that's all for today.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Sterling Visionary Voices, Insights for Role Model Leadership from the Sterling Council. Discover more and connect with us at sterlingvisionaryvoices.com.